Okay, so what are the 4 best dividend stocks for September 2021? So I thought I'd make this a monthly thing. Last month when I did one for August, I thought, why not make it a monthly thing, and I'll do the research monthly, and then we can start to see the types of companies that keep coming up over and over again. And interestingly enough, I have 4 companies like I did last month, and 3 of them are the same as August's companies that had both high dividends and high growth, because I do like to find stocks with both good growth and good dividends. I am primarily a dividend investor, so that's the primary thing I looked for, but of course we don't want to sacrifice growth as well as income. We want both. So we'll go through my process again. I'll show you a few extra things that I do now. There's one extra thing that I do with the Google charts that I just like doing over the 5-year period, that I find a little bit more helpful than just looking at the chart, because you get actual figures. And then next month we might even do something different. I'll talk about that in the video. But you know my process. We'll go through it step by step again, just quickly, so you get an overview of what I look for, and then we'll get into the stocks that I picked, the companies that have good dividends and good growth. So the very first thing I do is go get the list of ASX 100 stocks. I usually actually invest in the ASX 200, but for these videos, because I want to get them out monthly, I thought I'd just do the ASX 100. It'll give you a good overview of what I do anyway. So if I did the ASX 200, there'd probably be a lot more than just 4. I go to this website called the ASX 100 list. They have all of the companies in Australia for the ASX 50, the ASX 200, and so on. And I pretty much just copy and paste it straight into a spreadsheet. Then I just add all main columns that I want. The next step is just going and getting all of the yields for the different companies, the list of 100. Usually I do this through CommSec because that's who I trade through, but a lot of people were asking me a free way to do this. So this website, Market Index, you can do that here. So you just pretty much go and search for the company, and then it'll right at the top, it'll tell you the dividend yield. It'll be nothing if they don't pay dividends. Then I just go through and fill in all of the data. Once that's done, I'll just sort by dividend yield from highest to lowest. Then it's just a matter of going in and filling out the rest of the details. Now, I don't fill out the details for all of the 100 stocks. I usually go from about 4.5% dividend yield upwards. Usually sometimes I just stick to the 5% and higher, because that's what I mainly look for, but sometimes you can go a bit lower. If you want to try and get a lower price, you can make the dividend yield a bit higher. This is what I was talking about what I might do next month for finding high dividend and high growth stocks. Market Index, the site that we've been using to find the dividend yield, also has these popular pages, and one of them is the highest dividend yield. Now they use, I think it's the ASX 300, the top 300 stocks, and they'll use a dividend yield of 5% or higher, and they rank it by dividend yield. So instead of going through the ASX 100 next month, I think we'll just grab it from here and go through the ASX 300 that are already been filtered out by a dividend yield. I think that might be fun. Now, I don't do the rest of them in any particular order, just whatever I comes up with. On Market Index, I'm not familiar completely with their website, but I feel like they've got quite a lot of good information for free, which is amazing. So we'll just look at the first one on my list, which was AGL, which had a really high dividend yield. But as you can see the chart over a 5-year period, it does not look good. There's no growth here. And I know that they're going through some sort of demerger or something right now, which also sometimes that can be really good for investors. Doesn't seem to be the case with AGL right now. So for general growth, it is not growing. So it's not a company that I would be interested in. Market Index also has a pretty good amount of dividend information too. And plus they have this nice little chart similar to what CommSec has that shows you the dividends over the years, which I really like. But you can actually go up and have a look at the actual what they actually paid to. So I actually like doing that a lot better sometimes, and it also shows the franking, so I can grab all of that information and put that into my spreadsheet. So here's Fortescue Metals right now, and you can see that their dividends recently over the past 3 years have been pretty massive actually, and growing. Now that's probably because of metals, especially iron ore was doing really well recently. Although, as you know, in the last month, that has dropped. So that's something to keep in mind. Once I have all of that information, I'll just go and highlight the companies I want to look at further, because I haven't filled out all of the information because It's hard to get every single bit of information that I look for on free sites, so I'm going to have to jump into CommSec just to get the last few bits of information, but I'll highlight all the ones I want to look at further, and I'll probably narrow that down as I go. Now, I mentioned earlier there was an extra thing I do with Google now. Now, as you know, a lot of you will already know that Google shows different charts. You can just put in whatever the code is for the company and then just put ASX or chart or something, and they'll show a chart coming up, which I find is really helpful just for a quick snap overview. They usually default to 1 day, which is not that helpful for me because I'm not a trader, I'm a long-term investor. But what I have found really interesting, that if you go into each of the different time periods, 5 days, 1 month, 6 months, or so on, they actually show you how much it's increased over that time frame, which is just really helpful. You could work it out yourself, but it's really helpful just to go in, and they're giving you the figures really easily. So I like to go into the 5-year to see how much the stock has increased over 5 years, because as a long-term investor, I'm not so much worried about the day-to-day fluctuations. I don't even mind if something goes down for a month or two. That doesn't bother me so much as I want to know long-term what it's going to do long-term. So as you can see, Fortescue Metals, even though they're down right now because of iron ore, over the past 5 years, they're up over 300%, which is massive. You would have made so much money if you had have invested 5 years ago. Now, of course, that doesn't guarantee that in the next 5 years it's going to go up that much, but I do like to see that if something has grown so much in the past, it gives me more confidence that it will continue to be strong in the future. So here's Harvey Norman, which I did have on my list last year, but I didn't actually go and really look at the growth. I was really just looking at the last 12 months, which it has increased a lot in the last 12 months because of online shopping has increased over the pandemic period. But if we look at the past 5 years, 5% over the past 5 years, sorry, it's not just got, it doesn't have the growth that I'm looking for. So even though it has good dividends, it's not a high enough growth for me. 5% over 5 years isn't high enough. So it's out. So now I'm back in CommSec just to get the last bit of information. It's just really just on the summary page on the very first page. When you go to any company, it's really easy to find. And all I'm looking for now, which I couldn't get in the free sites, is dividend stability and debt to equity. Always really interesting to me that the dividend yields that CommSec shows is often quite different to other sites. They've got BHP being 9.4%, which is different to what Market Index showed. I would assume that's because Market Index isn't including the latest dividend, which I think is going to be paid out any day now. And it was quite a big dividend this time, which is probably why CommSec is including it and Market Index wasn't. Maybe that their data isn't quite up to date. And here's another example. CommSec has got AFI as the dividend yield as 2.9%, which is a lot lower than Market Index has it. It is important to note too that dividend yield is only important when you're purchasing a stock. Once you've purchased it, you purchased it at a particular yield, and hopefully the stock will be increasing over time, so the yield will get better for you over time. So dividend yield is really only important when you're buying. It's just a calculation of the current stock price and the annual dividends that they paid over the last year. And you can pretty much easily do this yourself. It's really just dividing the annual dividend by the stock price, and that's how you get the dividend yield. It's really simple to work out. So working out AFI's dividend myself, just using the current price, the current trading price, and the dividends over the past 12 months. So the last 2 dividend payments, the interim and the final, I got a figure of 2.86% dividend yield. So the CommSec one is actually closer to what the actual dividend yield is right now than Market Index was, which I think is really interesting too. Which means we're left with 4 companies: Fortescue Metals, Rio, JB Hi-Fi, and BHP. I'll just quickly go into each of those so we can find out more information and why I chose them as my 4 stocks for September. So these are all going to have the same reasoning. It's going to be good long-term growth and high growing dividends. The same for all 4. Ones we've chosen is FMG, Fortescue Metals, Rio Tinto, JB Hi-Fi, and the BHP Group. So just finished editing it, except for this last closing bit. So those were the 4 companies. I hope you found them interesting. A lot of materials companies there, so it'll be interesting going forward to see if they continue to be in my list. Probably it's because I'm sticking to the ASX 100. Once I go outside that, we'll start to see a lot of different types of companies. So I'll be looking forward to next month when I try something different. Okay, well anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to get this out so I can get it up today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.